that they're helping someone. I'm not saying everybody has that mindset, but I just want to say that because I think that a lot of people who are foreign or don't know the lifestyle think that we are monsters because of what we did or what we do. And
so True has a very interesting story, and we're going to talk to him about it, but I wanted to set it up a little. Something that we've talked about on the radio a few times is, when should someone's gun rights, or if someone's gun rights should ever be taken away? If you're a felon, right now, there's two kinds of people in the world. You're either a prohibited person or you're not a prohibited person. Mm-hmm. And if you're a felon of any kind, you're a prohibited person, but there are other ways to be a prohibited person. And it's an interesting question. Should someone who, what if they didn't commit a violent crime? What if it was a white collar crime? Should they lose their rights? What if they committed a nonviolent crime and it's been 10 years? Should they get their rights back? And the other thing we talk about is just how many gun laws, especially states like California and New Jersey and Illinois have. And I've even written an op-ed on how all these gun laws and the way they're disproportionately used against minority communities is the exact definition of institutional racism. That op-ed appeared in the Union Tribune, basically said, hey, everybody's talking about institutional racism. Here's how they define it. And by that definition, gun laws, particularly in California, meet that.
They printed it?
Oh, yeah. They printed it. Of course, man. So they never called me back after that, though. So I heard True's story, and we're gonna talk to True, and he's got a bunch of interesting things going on, but I wanted everybody to kind of keep that in mind. So, True Khepra, how are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent, and it's an honor and privilege to be on this show. I'm so grateful for all the work that you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I think your story is extremely interesting. Okay, so first, let's start with, let's kind of bounce around a little bit, and then we'll bring her on all home and tie it all together. But what is your interest in the Second Amendment, or specifically being a gun owner? Why do you want to be a gun owner?
It's pretty simple, and the answer is probably very boring. It's just to protect my family and to protect myself, especially given the situation that our certain society that's in now. It's simply to protect myself and my family.
Purely,
that's it.
Sure. Purely.
And let me give. I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me say this. Let me give some background on that too. I'm a martial artist. I'm a Muay Thai practitioner. I'm a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm pretty decent with knives. So this is something that I'm just passionate about. I think also, not to say that gun ownership is just for men, but I think that being a man, that it's also my masculine responsibility to protect myself and family. Just wanted to add that.
Well, and the other thing, and of course, you're actually getting your wife into Second Amendment and gun ownership as well, right?
She is. Yep. She's starting to see it now. When you look at what's going on in society, you can't really deny it.
How would you describe what's going on in society?
I think that, number one, if you look at how all the illegal immigrants are here and the type of stuff that you're doing, and let me say this before anybody starts to think something. I'm a firstborn generation in this country. So you're talking to someone whose parents are not from this country, but my parents came. They did it the right way. My father's a veteran. My mother went through the proper channels and protocols. And so when you look at what's going on in society in terms of like the illegal immigrants, and then before that, how they're basically like letting criminals go, and let me say that I myself was once considered a criminal, because I used to be a drug dealer. But not that I'm making up excuses or saying one is better than the other, but I didn't do stuff like, rob people or put guns in people. I wasn't into violent crimes. That wasn't my thing.
Okay, so
my thing was just selling drugs.
Yeah, and that's actually where we were going. Before we get there, though, so you were convicted on a drug charge, a nonviolent drug charge, and that made you a prohibited person. And where we're going with this is, True's going to talk a little bit about his journey at getting his gun rights back. Before we get too far down the road, one of the other things that we talked a little bit about was, there was a very practical want to defend yourself, defend your family. But then you also talked a little bit about how, it's a right, and that you don't want to give up any of your rights. That it was important to you to recover, the ability to exercise a right. And I thought that was very touching. I don't know if you want to touch on that or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, well, just to say, and this goes deeper than just guns, right? I'm in the medical field. I'm an X-ray technologist by trade, and I'm not allowed to work in certain hospitals. Actually, I'm not allowed to work at hospitals at all because of their just their laws and stuff. So it's not even just about gun ownership for me. It's also just about I paid my debt to society. I haven't committed any crimes since I'm 44 years old. The last time I got charged with anything was in 2006. It was a disorderly conduct charge, which is a misdemeanor. So we're talking about close to 20 years of me walking a straight line, and I'm a mentor to the youth. I speak at schools, so that's what I'm speaking about. But yeah, absolutely, it's just about when is it enough? Like what has to be done?
So,
and again, I'm not playing victim. I understand that I have to, pay for my choices, and I've done that.
Well, let's talk about your choices. By the way, True, did all this happen? You're from New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I'm from Paterson, New Jersey.
Did all this happen in New Jersey, or did it happen in another state?
Everything happened in New Jersey. Yep.
Okay.
In Paterson.
So let's talk about your choices. Let's talk about how did you grow up? You were in New Jersey. What was the environment when you were growing up?
It was. So I grew up in a typical hood environment. A lot of poverty around me. My mother, she worked, and I always say when I speak to the youth, I always say that my mother raised me right. A lot of my choices were influenced, and I'm not making up any excuses, but they were influenced by poverty. And I know that poverty is relative, right? Me being poor in comparison to, let's say, someone in Calcutta, India, is a totally different story. But nonetheless, just really the financial situation. And so, yeah, and then, so I was growing up, and you see drug dealers, and the older dudes was around me, they was making money selling drugs. And so eventually I was like, I want in. That's what I saw around me. It seemed like easy money. It's not really easy money. Some people think it's easy money, but it's really not when you consider the things that you have to go through. Like I've been in shootouts, fights, of course, and just, robbed. I've been pistol whipped, left for dead, all types of things. So it's not easy money.
I mean, that's. I think that when you say that, it sounds so. There are so many people listening to this where that sounds so foreign. Like you kind of rattle it off like, hey, I've been in a shootout and I'm pistol whipped and both. Almost like it was, you know what I mean? For you, that was your life. That was your normal life. But it's so foreign to so many people. So how old were you? Like, when did this happen? When you were 10? When you were 15? Like, talk a little bit about how did this come about? Like, you're young. You're in a neighborhood. Your parents didn't have a lot of money, and the neighborhood was a rough neighborhood. And you step outside your front door, and there are drug dealers, all over the place. But talk a little bit about what was the transition from being a young man to becoming a drug dealer?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the transition is basically, watching my mother struggle and not being able to do things that I wanted to do. And when I say that I wanted to do, it wasn't like nothing spectacular, but just basic things, and not being able to do it. Not having much clothes and things like that. You start to look at, okay, what else can I do? And so, I used to work for a youth program called PIC, which is a part of Paterson. It's a community-based program. I did that, and, you really don't get that many hours doing that. And then in Paterson, it's a city. It's a city similar to a city, like Newark, I would say. So a lot of people are familiar with Newark. So it's a city. So within the city itself, there aren't many, many job opportunities for a young man who's just striving to do the right thing and get money. and just earn an income just to help. And I really wanted to help my family, wanted to help my mom, and so all the jobs, you had to take buses and things like that. And so I just said, okay. I started selling weed at first. So I started off with selling weed, and I actually started selling weed in California.
When you were okay, so when you're talking, you're like 14, you're 15 years old, you're in high school.
Oh, my age? Yeah, I was in high school.
You're in high school. Your mom's struggling. You just want probably some of the basic things that a high school kid wants, but there's probably some basic needs that aren't being met too. I mean, you probably went to, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably went to school cold because you didn't have a brand new jacket. You probably went to bed hungry because you didn't, there wasn't enough to eat that day or whatever. I mean, right? I mean, some of your basic needs were probably not being met.
Right. I did have a jacket, that I will say, but definitely many hungry days. You know what I mean? Like, and if it wasn't hunger, it was like you would eat like bread and like peanut butter. And by the way, I'm not complaining. It's food.
Right.
It's food. Let me just say that it's food. And so, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm using that as an excuse. What I'm saying is that those things influenced my decision making. And so then, I would come outside and I would see, the older dudes on the block. That's what we call it, block. We go by blocks. So you see the older dudes on the block, and they have money, they have cars, they have jewelry. And after a while, man, I became weak, and I will call it that. I became people because I had friends that grew up the same way. Like I have a very good friend of mine whose father was murdered when he was 8 years old, and his mother was a drug addict. And he never got into the streets. He never sold drugs. So, some people, they like me, they break, so to speak, and some people don't. And I was one of the ones that broke. And so I just started to get into the lifestyle and started to just inquire about, what can I do to get what's the game, the slang term for it is in the game.
Okay, let's do a commercial real quick, and then I want to finish on the other side.
Okay.
True. We were talking a little bit about your upbringing, your neighborhood. So the first time, or when you started to, sell, I think you said marijuana or whatever, what was it like? Like the first time you started doing it, was it a thrill? Was it scary? Was it, like, thank God I'm going to get some money now? Or like, talk a little bit about that.
It was scary. It was actually very scary, and I remember really saying, really just questioning, what am I doing? Because I knew it was wrong, and I knew I wasn't supposed to do it. But at the time, I just saw it as, no alternative. And, what I was mentioning, too, is when I went to the older brothers in the neighborhood, a lot of people may look at them as they're staring us, people who were younger, the wrong way, but they're actually thinking in their mind helping. That they're helping someone. I'm not saying everybody has that mindset, but I just want to say that because I think that a lot of people who are foreign or don't know the lifestyle think that we are monsters because of what we did or what we do, and that's really not the case in all situations. I do believe that there are people that are nasty, and but that's not always the case.
So it wasn't like in the movies where some guy grabs you and says, "You better sell this, or I'm going to beat you up and kill your mom." It was.
I think true. I think they actually. But don't you kind of look at when they were looking at the younger kids, they actually needed them to help sell the weed. So you don't want to be. You want to show them the right way to do it. So you got a productive. Because whether it's weed, walnuts, or toilet paper, it's just a product that you guys are trying to sell to make a living, right?
Right. But at first, what they're doing first, they're telling you to go to school. Like, nah, you don't want a part of this. It's dangerous. You should stick to school, go to school. And then once you keep coming back, like, nah, I want in. They're like, oh, okay. And then they teach you the ropes.
Right. So how long did you do that before you got caught and convicted? How long did that go on?
Eventually, so I went from selling weed to eventually selling crack. And that went on, I want to say, until maybe 2003. I caught a big drug charge. I was facing 10 years. And then I went back to selling weed again. And so I did that until like maybe 2005 or something like that, and then I left the game. Once I got my degree, I got my associate's degree, and I had a different ways to feed myself and my family, because by then I had a family. I left the game alone.
Okay, so cops caught you. You went to court. You were convicted. What did you go to jail, or what was your punishment?
No, so basically I was put on probation because at the time I was in school, and I always kept a job and stuff like that. Like I checked the boxes, because when you don't have things like that, they look at you as you're just like a menace to society, like you have nothing going on for yourself. Another thing is too, I had lawyer money. I was smart enough to know that you need lawyer money, that you're going to get caught eventually. Mm-hmm. And so I had lawyer money, so I was able to pay the lawyer fees. It's a big game. And because of that, I got a probation, never went to prison or anything like that. Wow. I did like small jail time, like a few days, but I always had enough money to bail myself out and fight the case.
So did you end up with a felony, or what made you a prohibited person?
Yeah.
It was a felony.
Yeah,
they said, okay, you're a felon.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a felon, but I never went to prison.
How hard was it to walk away? Because, you hear the stories that once you're in the group, there's no way you can walk away. We're going to have to kill you.
It wasn't hard at all. That's some movie stuff. And plus, like, I never joined a gang. Maybe that's for people who are in gangs.
Yeah.
But where I'm from, it's all about blocks. It's more or less about what block you're from, and the block that you're from is the block basically where you live at.
Right.
And so I was like I was considered like somebody big in the game. I would say I wasn't like no small punk or nothing like that. So couldn't nobody tell me nothing. So when I decided to go, I was actually applauded and congratulated. To this day, a lot of my peers from that lifestyle, they look up to me and they always congratulate me for making the choices that I did. That's another thing that's different too. Like people make it seem like people want to keep you down. No, my friends applauded me. They were celebrating me when I was going to school and when I got my degree. It was a big thing. They felt like I did something that they either want to do or can't do.
Right.
I made it out.
What was your degree in?
Mm-hmm. I have an associate's degree in applied science with a specialty in radiography.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you get out of there. You actually start, doing. After you get your degree, Did you get a job in your field, or?
Yep. Yeah. It took a long time though. Like everybody I graduated with, they got jobs because they were able to just go straight into hospitals. But luckily and fortunately, I met a man who gave me a chance, who's no longer living. His name is Scott Kearns. Rest in peace, Scott Kearns. Because back then, I'm showing my age right now. You still had to meet, like when you did an interview and you submitted your application and resume, you did it in person. So I was able to really sit in front of Scott and really just let him know, like, listen, that's not who I am. It's a mistake. I was really having a conversation with him about life. And he was a supervisor at the time. And he was like, yeah, I get it. No problem. You were young. You did something dumb. And he gave me a chance. And because of that, it changed the trajectory of my life.
What about for, I don't know, lack of a better term, your mentality? Was there a mentality change, or did getting busted kind of, was it a wake up call, or talk a little bit about that?
There was a few things going on. So in the middle of everything that was going on, I was also starting to read books and learning about Black empowerment. What it means to be an intelligent Black man, what my ancestors went through and stuff like that. And so my mind started to shift. I learned about like how the government put crack cocaine in the communities and how the projects was created. And I started to see like, wow, like I'm falling into the trap of a design here. And so, I started to shift my mind, started to like really just want to become more of a positive person. So reading books played a huge part. Also, the birth of my daughter, my first daughter, when she was born, I just knew, number one, I did just as a man, I wanted to be in her life. And I knew that if I continued on the path that I was going, that I would be either locked up facing a lot of years, because the judge that saw me already told me, like, listen, if you violate your probation, you're doing the whole 10. So,
Wow.
so I knew that I would either go to prison and I wouldn't be in her life, or that I would eventually get killed. There's two ways out. Like, now that's real, like the movies. There's three ways out, right? Because I made it out, really. But the high probabilities of getting out is either through prison or death. And I knew that. And so I was like, yo, it's time. Because now it's no longer about me. At the time, I didn't really care about my life, but I cared enough about my daughter's life to change my life for her.
So today you have kids, you have a wife, you have a career,
Indeed.
you have
own property, everything.
You give back to the community. I know you wrote a book.
Yes.
You like you were talking how you talk to the kids, and try to help them. So at some point you decided, hey, I want to try to get my gun rights back. Take us through that journey.
Yeah, so really, it's around the time that I started to think more conservative, and I laugh at myself because I can't believe I'm even saying those words, because in the community that I come from, you're sort of like brainwashed and programmed that you're supposed to be like liberal or Democrat and whatnot, and if you're not that, then you're following like the racist white man's way. And so, but I realized as I started to really just, number one, diverse group of people, just by the nature of how I'm living in the business that I'm conducting now, I started to realize, like, you know what? Their values are actually are very aligned with how I think and how I want to live my life. And so that's when I started to discover like gun ownership and then just things like that. But I've been going to the gun range with friends of mine who didn't live the street life and had their right to bear arms and have guns themselves. I've been going to gun ranges with them, and I just think that is always important. You could say as soon as I became a parent, that's it. Like the desire to want to protect my family.
But what do you actually? How do you? I don't even know this. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's who was a felon and got their rights back. So what's the actual, what's the process there? How do you do that?
So you have to file for an expungement, but that is, so let me tell you about that. So with me, well, let me answer your question. The way that you can do it is by filing an expungement.
Okay. And
then if the state deems that it's okay for your record to get expunged, then you can go apply. But I'm having and it's not only me. There's a class act lawsuit going on in New Jersey. Yeah. So to give you an idea of what's happening, I filed for my expungement in December 2020. I didn't get the order back until August 2023, and then I waited. Figured, okay, let me give it some time. And then in February, I went to get fingerprinted. Not even for like my firearms. For really, I was just exploring a new opportunity for employment, and my record came back, and I was like, what's going on? And that's when I realized
it's still on there. You're still a prohibited person.
Everything.
Okay, but at some point, a judge reviews your case. You give them a bunch of information, and the judge makes the decision. Okay, you know what? We're going to expunge this, and you're not you won't lose your rights anymore. And like you were saying, New Jersey, we're seeing is, and there's even there are a couple of versions of this. New Jersey is really, really slowing down expungements and CCWs and all kinds of things, and it's hard to tell whether it's incompetence or malfeasance, because New Jersey is definitely one of those states that is extremely anti-gun. So let me ask you, we only have about another minute here, and in a minute, do you think society is served by making sure that you never own a gun again, or do you think that no, it's a better place if in the United States and New Jersey if you get to own a gun? Actually, let's go to the commercial. Think about that. Let's go to commercial. I'll have you answer it on the other side. Okay, True. So my question before we went to commercial was: is it a better society if you're able to exercise your Second Amendment rights?
Yes.
Tell us why. We'll give us a little back. Like what makes you say that?
Well, I think because if we look at if you look at the crime and the negativities that that happens in society, it's never the gun owners. You know what I'm saying? It's never the people who own guns legally. It's people who don't own guns legally that are causing all the havoc. So I think it will be a better society, because if everybody has the right to bear arms and that their homes are protected, then I think that it'll be less likely that someone will try to impose on them or act aggressive towards people, especially the innocent.
You've proven yourself. You're now one of the sane, trained, law-abiding gun owners out there that commit far fewer crimes than the general population, far fewer crimes than all kinds of different subgroups, and so hey, yeah, you should be able to defend. It's a better place if you're able to defend yourself and your family and your wife and act as a role model to those behind you, right?
Yeah, and hey, listen, my wife and I we're planning on doing that. We're just waiting a couple years, just waiting for my youngest to get a little older, and then we're moving to a red state ASAP.
All right. Well, cool. Well, True, can't thank you enough. Very interesting interview. You got anything you want to promote? You want to drive them to your website or anything?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that you can find my book. It's called The Power of Choice. You Are Not Stuck by True Khepra on Amazon. Just go on there, go to the search button, and look for The Power of Choice by True Khepra. And I would really appreciate it. And not only will it help support my family, but it'll help me in investing in the purpose and the mission and some of the stuff that I'm doing within the community to help prevent some of the youth to repeat some of the mistakes that I did.
Cool. Thank you, True. Appreciate your time, man.
And by the way, True, it's really sad when we won't see you in California.
Yeah, because we're not a red state.
Yeah, no, I'll come visit you, but that's it.
We'll meet late at night behind the 7-Eleven.
No, I appreciate it.
All right, bud.
See you, True. Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.